Today we're going to do the TryStick challenge part 2. We're going to make a few more notches. This is what we did last time. We cut the end of the stick off and made some feathers, did a pot hanger and a log cabin notch. Today we're going to start with a 7 notch. I'm also going to use a different knife today. This is a very similar design to what Morris Kohansky had spec'd out on what he thought the ideal bushcraft knife would be. It's the same basic overall shape, but this one is a Scandivex instead of being a Scandi grind. So we're going to see how this one works on doing notches. It has a much finer point, and I think this will be better for the tasks we have today. Okay, let's start with a 7 notch. First, let's baton in here, straight down. One thing I immediately noticed different about the Scandivex versus a Scandi is it sinks deeper into the stick with a lot less pounding. It's a lot less force. Where the Scandi wedges out really fast, the Scandivex thins out more behind the edge. Okay, so we batoned our stop cut. Now we'll just come down to it. This would be ideal for making tent pegs. Where you could simply make a little notch on the top of your stick, and then you would cut it off around here and round over the tip a little bit so it doesn't mushroom when you drive it in. We can make this just a little bit deeper. The other thing with the actual Scandi, you have to really hold the knife and cant it over to make up for that grind. With this knife, you can hold it more vertical when you're making that stop cut. And it's easy to get it to be angled backwards. So I think it's a little bit more user-friendly. Well, I went a little too far with banging on that one. So we're going to start the 7 notch over. See what I mean? This penetrates easier. It penetrates deep into the wood easier. I think what we'll do is we'll cut the end of the stick off again. We'll start with that. It'll knock the point off. Just give it a little bit of a round. Okay, let's start over with the 7 notch. We will baton in. And there we go. And this will be about perfect. You got a round on the top here. So when you drive it in, cut it off down here somewhere, put a point on this end, drive in here, and you've got a nice place to hold your cordage so it doesn't slip off. Next, let's try the log cabin. I know we did sort of a log cabin here, but only on one side. We're going to go, let's see, I think we're going to go a third of the way in and do it on both sides of the stick. So we'll come down here, we'll leave a little distance. It's on there a little bit. Come over. Even on a rocking action, the Scandivex seems to go deeper into the wood easier than the actual Scandi. Okay, let's do the other side. So we're right here. And then right here. Just putting your knife where the notch is and rolling around is a good trick to duplicate that cut on the other side. It marks it out nicely for you. Just rock it in a little bit. Now, one thing you'll notice about this knife, this blade is a continuous curve starting here and all the way up. Again, that's a little different from a standard bushcraft knife. That was just the bark. Get in a little deeper so I can hit the notch. More on this side. Try and even this up. Get a little bit more on this side. Okay, now we'll turn the stick around and clean up the other way. Okay, there's the log cabin notch. Now, if this one was still intact, it could be laid on there if you cut them the right size to fit the sticks, just like you were building a log cabin. Now, one thing I want to do, since we broke this off, I want to put the pot hanger notch back in the stick. So let's come down a little bit lower, and we'll baton an X in here. And we'll start carving it out. This wood is actually fairly hard, so that's a good test. Okay, and there's the pot hanger notch. It's angled in here. That'll hold the bale with no problem. Okay, now another thing he suggested to do was to carve down on each side of the stick and then drill a hole through it. So let's do that next. Now, one thing you can do, you see what I'm doing, the spine is sharp, so when you're doing some push cuts like that, if you hold the knife back just enough to expose a little bit of the handle, you can put your other thumb right on the end of the handle. So if I flip this around, you can see I'm leaving a spot right here to put my thumb, so I'm not pressing on the sharpened spine. and that's much more comfortable. And it's okay to cut towards yourself like this. See how I'm holding the knife here? Even if it slips, my arm is hitting my body. That knife is not going to get into me. All right, let's flip this over and start to going on the other side. By carving towards myself in this manner, I'm saving the time it takes to flip the stick around, but I'm still being safe. See, I mean, how that's going to hit me? That knife is not going to go anywhere. All right, let's take a little bit more off of this side. That should be good enough. All right, I'm going to start with a little bit of drilling. Go right to the other side and drill a little bit here on this side. Kind of stabbing the knife in and wiggling a little bit to cut the fibers. And we'll start removing some of that material. And we should be able to see through here pretty soon. The other thing I can do is I can choke way up on the knife like this, and I'm not applying pressure. I'm just cutting some of those fibers. And even if the knife was to slip, you only have a little bit like that, a little bit of a tip that could get into you. So there's our hole through the stick. I have to look up what other notches were involved on a TryStick. We have the cut-off stick and rounded off. We have the 7-notch. We have the log cabin, the pot hanger, and the hole through the stick. I have to tell you, I definitely do like the performance of the ScandiVex. I do like the convex grind on this type of knife better than the Scandi grind. Now, I also prefer a regular saber grind. It's thin behind the edge. And the idea is a Scandi wedges out too much, and as you go to push it into the wood, it gets stuck. So it wedges itself into a position where it's not that it won't cut the wood, it's that wedging action stops it from going in further. So a knife that is thinner up a little higher will sink deeper into the wood much more easily. So this is pretty nice. This performs good. I wish the point was just a little bit more centered with the handle, but like I said, this exact design comes from Mors Kochanski. Like I said, I just did a ScandiVex instead of an actual Scandi. This knife is an 1/8 inch thick A2 tool steel with an African blackwood handle. Tubular pins. I did not leave a spot in the back for the hidden lanyard because this knife is a little small back here, and this is more for being able to put it in the palm of your hand and push down and put some pressure as you're turning in the wood, like for making this notch here where you have the hole. Okay, that's going to be it for part 2. I'll find some more notches and we'll come back with a part 3.